Harvey is a good-natured crane engine who works on the island of Sodor. He can be found everywhere, loading and unloading cargo, helping at construction sites, or cleaning up accidents, you name it. He's an engine that won't just lift you back onto the tracks again, he'll uplift your spirits too. His favorite place on the island is the waterworks at Wellsworth Station, but as of recently, they'd been struggling to pay rent. Nobody wanted to work with them for a long time since the waterworks at Great Waterton had been reopened. One day, Harvey arrived at Wellsworth to help unload some cargo from a cargo plane that had just arrived. He then saw the waterworks getting roped off. "What's happening?" he asked nervously. "We're closing down the waterworks here," said Wendy, the manager. We can't pay the rent. We're almost bankrupt." "I'm sorry," said Harvey sadly. I'll do everything I can to help. This is my home. You are my friends." Harvey soon puffed off and started unloading the cargo, but he couldn't stop thinking about the waterworks. Then he had an idea. "Hey, Wendy," he called. "I have an idea of how to save the waterworks." Wendy listened with interest. "You can ask station masters around the island if they want you to set up retention ponds to stop runaways. They'll pay you a lot of money," puffed Harvey. "You are a lifesaver," Wendy smiled. "I'll give you some of that money if you want." "I appreciate it," Harvey replied. Harvey slept at Wellsworth that evening while Wendy went around the island to see if any station masters would invest in this new idea. The next morning, she spoke to Harvey. "Wake up, Harvey," she said excitedly. "Your idea is working. We just raised $50 million to set up retention ponds around the railway, at every station and some random places." "I'm glad I could help," chuffed Harvey. "Here's the fun part," continued Wendy. "Would you like to pull the waterworks cars to every area to fill the retention ponds?" Harvey agreed. All day he was busy filling up retention ponds at every station on the railway. It was hard work, but Harvey was happy. Soon most stations had switches constructed on both sides of the line that diverted engines into these retention ponds if they were runways. But there was just one problem. If you've never watched this series before, most signalmen are incompetent dipshits that make Brennan and Dale from Step Brothers look like fucking Plato, Shakespeare, and Einstein. And some station masters, of course, forgot to inform their signalmen about these retention ponds. But the next morning, Percy was taking some stone trucks from the quarry to Brendam. His boiler had been filled with alcohol, and he was too drunk to realize he was going too fast. His driver texted the signalman to divert him into the retention pond instead of, trying to stop Percy. But the signalman was too busy playing dress to impress on Roblox. Thomas had heard that Percy was a runaway and went up to the signal box and pointed his cannon at the signalman to get him to change the points. Percy raced out of the tunnel and the points were switched just in time. Percy slid off the line into the retention pond and came to a stop. "What did you do that for, Thomas?" Percy snapped. "I was going so nicely." "It was for your own safety," said Thomas. "You were drunk and would have had a pretty deadly crash without those ponds. Thank God for Harvey's suggestion. I'll go get the breakdown train to lift you out of here." As Percy was rescued from the pond, he felt concerned for any potential engines who would be falsely seen as runaways and diverted into these ponds. His theory was promptly proved correct. Percy was soon back on the tracks and about to be pushed to Crosby Yards by Thomas when, out of nowhere, Gordon was pulling the express and picking up speed. The signalman had carelessly left the points switched to the retention pond. "Oh, help!" Gordon shouted as he crashed into the pond. Luckily, no one was hurt. "Express engines shouldn't be stopped like this," huffed Gordon crossly. "Driver, go up and see if there is a signalman in there or I'm insane." As they later found out, the signalman had made a run for it. But the worst was yet to come. Neville was pulling some troublesome trucks up to Abbey, and as he was switched onto the Peel Godred line, the truck saw the pond at Kronk and wanted to push Neville off the bridge into the pond. Suddenly, the truck shouted, "On, on!" and pushed him up the hill and down the line. "I will not end up hanging from my bridge again!" Neville shouted in fear, but there was still trouble ahead. Stanley was calmly puffing up the line when suddenly... "We did it!" cheered one of the trucks, and the others cheered like there was no tomorrow. "Are you all right, Neville?" asked Stanley, feeling very concerned. "I think so," wheezed Neville. "I don't know what it is with me and f***ing bridges, though." Meanwhile, Harvey was resting in Wellsworth when Wendy came up with some bad news. "Harvey," she said, "your idea about setting up retention ponds was good, but it's coming with some problems. Tons of engines have been crashing into them even though they weren't runaways due to incompetent signalmen." Harvey thought long and hard to come up with a good suggestion. "You can do it! Give a good suggestion! Blow their fucking minds!" "Make the station masters aware that it is the fault of the signalmen for not keeping a good lookout for runaway engines, and encourage them to interact with signalmen more to make sure nothing bad is happening," Harvey puffed thoughtfully. "We need to encourage them to take accountability for their actions. If that doesn't work, we need to look for construction projects that we can provide water for, like new harbors. It will be a good way to help us raise money if we have to refund them." Most of the station masters met with them in the Wellsworth offices, and although they understood the crashes weren't the fault of the waterworks, they still decided they didn't want to use the retention ponds anymore and requested refunds. And just when it seemed like bankruptcy was inevitable again for the Wellsworth Water Works, help came due to Harvey's suggestion. Two YouTubers, aka me and my partner Morbid Mike, came to the scene with a budget of $100 million. We bought out a shit ton of water to build a new harbor at Vickerstown, effectively lifting the waterworks out of bankruptcy once again. Soon they were providing water left and right, and it was all thanks to the genius of Harvey the Crane Engine.